Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist, and our virtual Sunday service. My name is Linda Thompson, and I'm a member of the Worship Associate Ministry at the Community Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whoever you came to worship with us today, you are welcome here. Our minister is Reverend Thom Belote. Our preacher this morning is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson. Reverend Garcia-Sampson is the Executive Director of the Forward Together UU Ministry of North Carolina. In this role, she has the pleasure of working alongside UUs across the state to do justice work, spanning racial, economic, immigrant, environmental, and electoral justice. A special note, today at 11 a.m., instead of the usual coffee hour, our board will conduct the annual congregational meeting. The board will present congregational awards, provide an update on the building project, and take some time to appreciate the resilience, generosity, and fellowship of our community over the last year. Follow the link that was sent to you in the weekly announcements to join in at 11 a.m.
Good morning. This is a Share the Plate Sunday, and as is customary on the Sunday of our congregational meeting, the Share the Plate is generously given and gratefully received for the minister's discretionary fund and the Benevolence Fund. These funds exist in our church in order to provide generous cash assistance to anyone in our community who may find themselves in need of a little help. This morning, I have not one, but two requests. The first request is for your generosity. The minister's discretionary fund and the Benevolence Fund are such a blessing to our church. They can provide help with rent assistance, with bills, with prescriptions, with emergency travel, with car repairs, and even help with opportunities such as camps for children and youth. The minister's discretionary fund and the Benevolence Fund help us to take care of each other, help us meet the needs of our community. My second request is for you to ask for money from the discretionary fund and the Benevolence Fund. These funds exist to be spent. So if you find yourself in need of some cash assistance, if you find yourself thinking that that would help, or if you find someone else in our community who you think may be able to really benefit, it would make a difference, this fund, please encourage them to come to me and ask for it. This money exists to bless us, to be given away, to help us all live our lives and thrive in community. Thank you for your generosity and for giving to this morning's Share the Plate.
The best way to make a contribution is through the Give Now section of the virtual service page. You may use this approach for up to 5 days after the service. To give after Thursday, write a check payable to the church noting STP on the memo line. Mail the check to Dana Lundquist at the church's address. Thank you.
The task of the religious community. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of our larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens, and our strength is renewed.
Good morning. Please join me in reciting the words on our screen as we light our chalice. We light our chalice to mark the gathering of this beloved community. With gratitude, we open ourselves to the love and peace which is offered to us in this sacred hour. Today's reading is a story about the ancient Chinese Taoist philosopher Chuang. The story has been adapted by Reverend James Ford and then again by me. So once upon a time, the wise sage Confucius was on a journey with some of his students when they came across a magnificent waterfall. Not the kind of small waterfall that you can jump off or play under. Think something more powerful, something in the direction of Niagara Falls. Big, with water that rushed over the cliff and came crashing down. So Confucius was standing with some of his students near the falls when they suddenly saw a man appear at the top. He was at the water's edge doing stretches, squinting down to the bottom with a big smile on his face. They were starting to get nervous. They thought he would never jump. But he did, stretched out his hands and perfectly dove off the edge, gracefully splashing into the water. A perfect 10. Completely stunned, Confucius and his students rushed down to the water's edge to check on the man. After all, how could anyone dive into such a powerful current and go unharmed? But when they got there, they witnessed something even more stunning. There was the man, gleefully doing backstrokes in the water, just soaking up the afternoon sun. Confucius rushed over to interview the man because, like all the best teachers, he was also a student, always wanting to learn more. And as the man floated by, Confucius said, "Sir, how did you survive that fall? What is your secret?" The man replied, "No secret. I have lived along the banks of this river near these falls all my life, and I have made a study of them, how they flow and where the currents are and the eddies and the still paces, all of it. When I dive into the falls, I know and respect the power of the water, but I don't stiffen up in fear. Instead, my body relaxes and bends with the currents. I don't resist or struggle, I flow with it all. And that's how I survive and find great joy in the water." Confucius stared at the man for a while with a big smile on his face, recognizing the deep truth that he had just heard. The end.
Lonely, lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my darling
Good morning. Well, it's really great to be with you all this Sunday morning. I hope that the start of summer is treating you well. I've been able to hear just a little bit about some of your travels to the mountains and to the beach and to see family members, and I'm just so happy. And recently I was actually also able to take a little vacation. For the first time since the pandemic, I traveled home to Rhode Island, and most notably to see my niece Amelia for the first time since the day she was born on March 2nd, 2020. When I was there, I was also able to visit my old stomping grounds in Boston, where I went to seminary and did my ministerial internship. And it was in that visit that prompted me to return to a topic of interest from seminary, that being the changing religious landscape in our country, and specifically the decline of organized religion and the rise of the religiously unaffiliated. This topic was of particular interest to me because I've been watching this trend my whole life. When I was young, there were 7 Catholic churches in my small hometown in Rhode Island. Now there are 3. And I've watched a similar trend from other denominations in New England, with classic white steeple churches being converted into antique shops and coffee shops and Airbnbs before my eyes. And more recently, I served as the ministerial intern at First Church Boston. It's where Thom did his internship too, actually. And this is the church where in 1630, John Winthrop founded the city of Boston and famously said, "May we be a city upon a hill," a shining example to all the world of a Christian nation as God intended it. And yet, even with First Church Boston being the vibrant place that it is today, I can see how that church is reckoning, and has been for a long time now, with its ever-shrinking footprint in an increasingly secular Boston. So you can understand why, as someone with a vested interest in the future of organized religion, I've been studying this trend for a while now, trying to better understand what it might mean for our faith. In the last 3 decades, the percentage of people in the US who do not affiliate with an organized religion has gone from 11% to now 26%. By any standard, that is a massive jump. And of course, this correlates with the reality that people are leaving organized religion. Now, certainly some faiths and denominations are doing better than others. It probably won't surprise you that some regions in our country are doing better than others. When I moved here 2 years ago, fellow ministers told me about how religious community is still a huge part of our culture here in North Carolina, and I have certainly experienced that to be true. With vibrant, growing churches, including this one, all around the state. And let me be clear, both of these things can be true at the same time. And yet, we do belong to this larger national culture that is rapidly shifting. And I do believe that we should be paying attention. Some experts who are studying this rise in the religiously unaffiliated regard it as a once in every 500-year radical transformation of the church, with the last such change being a tiny event called the Protestant Reformation. And some who study this trend point to my own generation, the dastardly millennials, as the major cause of it. Some make the assertion that faith and spirituality just matter less to us than previous generations, that our sense of individuality reigns over our commitment to community. Well, if your loyalties lie with organized religion, this is a very convenient assessment. It's not us, it's them. But I think it's wrong. Others have come to a different conclusion. The Faith Matters survey found that among this cohort, the religiously unaffiliated, most of them express some belief in God and even in the afterlife, and many of them say that religion is important in their lives. The same survey also tells us that young Americans view religion as judgmental and hypocritical, and a large number say they became unaffiliated because religious organizations are not spiritual enough. Not spiritual enough. Looking deeper, It's not that millennials don't care about morality or spirituality, no. They're saying that churches are not fulfilling their spiritual and ethical needs, and that is an entirely different situation. Moreover, in their publication, How We Gather, Angie Thurston and Casper Chikyle of Harvard Divinity School write that millennials who identify as religiously unaffiliated also hold community and deep relationship as core values. Spirituality, morality, connection. That is what the religiously unaffiliated are looking for. So in 2018, I got a grant to go on a road trip through the South with my spouse Reed to visit places where people were finding these three things. We sought out innovative church models that reimagined traditional frameworks of organized religion. We went to a farm church, a journey church, a beer and hymns night, which is essentially a bar church. And we sought out distinctly non-church experiences too. We met people who considered yoga and storytelling to be their spiritual practices, people who found authentic connection through community meals and live music, even rooting for a college basketball team. People who lived out their morality through activism and education. And everywhere people said, this over here, this is where I feel connection. This is where I feel my spirit come alive, where I experience personal transformation through my justice work. Following that road trip and all my research on this topic, here is what I have come to believe. First, we should be happy for those who are finding places out in the world that meet their spiritual needs. After all, we are a faith that affirms people's authority to freely search for meaning and to seek out experiences that make us feel alive. This also humbly reminds us that organized religion does not have a monopoly on spirituality or morality or meaning-making, and it never did. Second, we can learn a lot from the religiously unaffiliated. Some of what is emerging in these new spiritual and ethical communities can inform the way we do church. I'm talking about embodied spirituality in worship, justice work that brings about personal transformation, creating the powerful experience of welcome and belonging for those who are traditionally underrepresented in a community, and so much more. These things can help us better meet our nation's need for deep spirituality and lived morality and authentic connection. Because the other important thing is, some of those people who have left organized religion, not all of them, but I deeply believe that some of those people are looking for us. This vibrant, living tradition that is not afraid to draw from many sources and seek to center love and justice and the miracle of being alive. And it is our responsibility to discern how we are called to evolve to better meet the needs of those here and those who might come through our doors tomorrow. Will people continue to leave organized religion at this current pace? Will we seek a church renaissance? I have no idea. But we do know that church will continue to change. And what I am reassured by are all the ways that church has already adapted for the better in our lifetimes. Take this for example. Well into the 20th century, people were socially expected, if not pressured, to go to church. And even our government reinforced religion's role at the center of our society. Who here remembers blue laws, which prohibited a range of activities on Sunday? Stores were closed, movie theaters were closed. You certainly weren't buying alcohol on Sunday. That helped church attendance. But now, Sunday is fair game for everything. And for lack of a better phrase, we have to compete. We've had to up our game on Sunday. And now all the people who are here because they want to be. And that's a good thing. Another cultural shift that happened in the 20th century that really cramped our style was that dastardly women's liberation. Before so many people joined the workforce, a lot of churches enjoyed a free, full-time volunteer staff of women. And now people like Marion and Rachel and Glenn, brace yourselves, expect to be paid for their jobs, right? What kind of world are we living in? This has led to the growth of the professionalization of church staff. Religious educators and administrators and music directors are now well trained and fairly compensated, and they have taken this faith to the next level. I mean, gosh, we have seen that in this pandemic, how incredibly blessed we are to have our church staff. And more recently, because of our raised consciousness around issues of race and gender, sexuality, accessibility, we have changed the way we worship, the way we welcome, the way we put our faith into action, and we are better for it. And of course, we have just experienced and are still in the midst of a massive, massive change in the way we do church during this pandemic. And we have met this moment with incredible creativity and resourcefulness, and most importantly, a willingness to adapt. And now, as we prepare to come back in person soon, with this newfound adaptability, not to mention our new skills for gathering virtually, who knows how it will change the way we do church. But just like this larger shift occurring in our culture, we are called to be willing to evolve to better meet the spiritual needs of this community. Like Chuang in our story today, may we meet this river current not with fear or rigidity, but with faith and nimbleness, and dare I say, joy. A quick story. During our 2018 road trip studying alternative spiritual communities, Ree and I visited a Presbyterian minister named Ben in a faraway place called Durham, North Carolina. Okay, not so far away. For the first 30 years of his career, Ben was a traditional parish minister in Texas and then in Wisconsin. But then one night he had a dream. He literally had a dream to start a farm church. And he did it. Founded a church at the Seeds Urban Garden in Durham. On Sunday mornings, for the first hour, the whole congregation farms the land, growing fresh produce to donate to their local community. And then they all go into the barn for an hour of worship. When we sat down with Ben, we asked him, how did you have the courage to change so much of the traditional church model? And I'll never forget what he told me. He explained that throughout his entire career, he had always tried to put Jesus' message of serving our neighbors at the center of his ministry. But he found that in some ways, the old church model was getting in the way of him doing that. So he created a new church where the entire mission was to help end food scarcity in his immediate neighborhood. Literally, service to their neighbors. And he said by putting the most important value at the center, his church felt newly liberated to let go of not all but some of the parts of the traditional church model. His ministry evolved in a way that changed with the times, met the needs of his congregants, both young and old, and lived into his Christian values in a deeper way than he had ever done before. Now, let me be clear. I am not encouraging you to become a farm church, okay? So no one go tell Thom that. That is not what I'm saying. But here is what I want you to take away from that story. Resilient institutions change with the times without changing who they are. And they do that, we do that, by knowing who we are. By distilling what is at the heart of Unitarian Universalism. What is at the heart of community church? What is our enduring identity, our enduring values? Only we can answer that for ourselves. But when we do, anchored in that core identity of our faith, we can overcome the fear and uncertainty of the future and meet this moment with the spirit of ingenuity and possibility that is required. We will change with the times without changing who we are. And we will be better for it. May it be so. Amen.
Love will guide us, peace has stride us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has covered us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Each week, we hold a time in our service for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us to this church community. This week, we didn't actually receive any joys or sorrows, but we will be doing virtual joys and sorrows the next 2 Sundays. And just as a reminder, if you have a joy or a sorrow to share, you can send that to me either by email or by text. And the deadline for the next 2 Sundays is Friday at noon. Well, we don't have any joys and sorrows this morning. I do want to place a stone of thanks to all of the volunteer leaders in our church community. First and foremost, I want to thank the board for their diligent service over this past year. I know signing up to serve on the board of a church during a pandemic is not what most people had in mind, but they have led with great care, with great support, and with great diligence, and for that I am thankful. I want to thank many of the ministries of our church, all of the ministries of our church who have given and served so faithfully during the past year. I want to thank the Worship Associates Ministry and the Music Ministry for helping to make virtual worship come alive. I want to thank our Children and Youth Ministry for supporting all of our children and youth during this time. I want to thank our Welcoming Ministry for keeping us connected, our Caring Ministry for helping us to care for ourselves and to care for us during this past year. I want to thank the Spiritual Exploration for Adults and Living Our Covenant Ministry for leading so many wonderful programs, especially our racial justice work. I want to thank our Justice and our Service Ministries for continuing to live our faith, whether that's Side with Love or the Sanctuary Ministry or the Sanctuary for Dialogue. This work in our wider community has been so important. I want to thank our Buildings and Grounds and Sacred Gardeners for keeping our building and our grounds running even when we've not been able to be here. And I want to thank as well any ministries or committees that I did not mention. And of course, I have to mention our building task forces, that amazing group of teams, those amazing teams who have made our new building a reality. Won't you join with me in a moment of thanks? And won't you join with me in a moment as we honor all of those joys and sorrows that were not spoken this morning? Thank you, and amen.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante. Siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin mover atrás, sin mover atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly, never turning back, never turning back. Amaremos con pasión, siempre con pasión, siempre con pasión. Across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our borders, never turning back, never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras.
I invite you to join with me in the words by which we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now, won't you please join with me in singing Shalom.
Shalom.